Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome back to BK's Baits with Motion Sports. Well, as always, every week we put it up on the poll what y'all want to talk about. And this week we had frogs, which I was really hoping to talk about, but people voted for bed fishing baits. We got the spawn coming up here in Texas. It's already started on some of our lakes. Probably, some of the other southern states getting ready. Florida's probably in certain areas in the midst of it, probably still dealing with some waves of it. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. Before we get into the baits, I want to talk about just bed fishing in general. I think there's a few guidelines to follow when you think about, trying to target fish on beds. And first of all, it's that every fish is different. There's going to be some fish that get so agitated by one bait or presentation or something that you throw it in there and it's like hits in the bed, you drag it up to the bed and they're going to just eat it. There's going to be other ones that you're going to have to change baits 2 or 3 times, change colors 2 or 3 times, agitate them with one bait, throw another bait in to get them to eat, all those kinds of things. And if you can see your fish and you can see how they're reacting to that, it's a lot easier. If you can't, then you may just have to, interchange them. But, you need to have the mindset going into that there's not just a cure-all. Not every fish is going to eat blank. They are all different. When you see them react on the bed, you'll be like, they have different personalities. Some are going to be instantly aggressive and flare their fins up. Some are going to, pick the bait up and spit it out or just grab by the tail and swim it off the bed. The other thing is too, when you start doing this, generally the males are going to always come and grab the bait first. If you catch the male and you want to hold them, I know people do that. I don't like that. If the male grabs it, I just try to shake them off if I can see them. And eventually, if the male is not doing his job, that big female will get angry and kind of like bully him out of the way, and she will come be like, I'll take care of this. The other thing is just a general guide, tip here, if you will, to bed fishing. Do not block their access to deep water. I've heard people say this, and I think it was last year I was on Fort with my buddy and we were in the boat, and he had his boat positioned like on the deeper side, like from the bed to like the channel, because we're kind of like on the edge of it on a big flat. And we, pitched this fish for like 20 minutes and she would not eat. And all we did was just move the boat, not any further away, but just to the more like the shallower side, and left her access to deep water open, and first flip, she ate it. So, take that for what it's worth. In the kayak, I'm not sure if that matters as much. Maybe just making sure you're accurate is most important, but just a tip to think about. All right, so let's get into the baits. First and foremost, guys, it's going to be a Texas rig. I didn't pick a specific plastic here because every fish is different. I don't have a specific color. If you want to be able to see your bait really well, and you want to throw hot pink or white, that's fine. I don't put as much value in being able to see my bait. I kind of have a general area of where I'm throwing it, what it's doing. But some ones I like to use is like crawl style baits. So, like a rage crawl or an ultra vibe speed crawl. If you guys watch the St. John's event, Pollinux video, like a Senko is great. And then, other creature baits like brush hogs, lizards, tubes, grubs, whatever you want. I will say though that for me, a lot of times what I do is like, I start pitching a, creature bait, and maybe they're kind of like being finicky, or they're like picking it up by the claws and swimming it off. And once that fish starts to get agitated, I will throw in a shaky head, whatever size shaky head, but just small, like get that profile down a little bit. And I'm amazed. You can also use a Nico rig too. Also works great. But you pitch that smaller bait up in there, and after they've been kind of swimming that big one off, it's like the small one lands and it's just gone. So that's kind of like a 1-2 deal for me is, throw this around, get them agitated, throw something smaller in there, get them just to eat it. That's something I like to do. Like I said, every fish is not the same though. Sometimes the Texas rig with a creature bait or a Senko or whatever it is works. It's perfect. 5 flips, it's over. We had a tournament on Fort 2 years ago, and I was fishing for a dead fish, and I, threw in for probably like 15 minutes, different creature baits, different colors, different sizes, and then first flip with the shaky head. The second it hit the water, just choked it. So, utilize that if you can. Obviously, you may not want to spend that long on every fish, or, you may be like, I don't throw shaky head at like Nico rig, throw the Nico rig then. That's fine. I also think a drop shot can work too, whatever you're most comfortable with. Secondly, we brought up not every fish is the same. A jig is, real big jig sometimes a little bit smaller. If they don't eat those, same thing. If I can tell they're really agitated by the jig, but it's like that jig's just too much, finesse jig or micro jig. Same concept as what we're doing with the Texas rig and the shaky head, or the Texas rig and the Nico rig. If I'm throwing in that Texas rig and they're just not agitated, and I throw that jig in there and I can see their gills flare up and their fins stand up, I'm like, okay, they're mad at the jig. But if they won't eat that big one, same thing. We just downsize. Once they're nice and upset, flip it in there. Good to go. And then I think a bait that I will get specific with, because I've not fished with it. I normally don't like to suggest baits I haven't fished with, but we're going to have to in this instance, because I think we would be remiss not to, is the gilly. What is a gilly? Well, glad you asked. So we have this nice little sunfish imitator here. Obviously, you can see like the cutouts, gives a lot of movement. Gives a ton of movement. Has a little hook pouch here in the top. Let me see if I can show you all that. But how do we rig this bait? What are we doing with it? So, if you guys are familiar with Greg Blanchard, famous, kayaker, YouTuber, he actually throws the Big Bites baits version, like I guess the original version of a gilly is what I refer to it as. I can't even think of what the bait's called, but he would Texas rig it like sideways and put it on a drop shot and throw it into the bed and just sit there and let it suspend on its side. And I've seen Greg catch tons of those in YouTube videos like that. So I think obviously that is an option with this. You can put it on a heavier drop shot setup. I also think you can Texas rig it sideways. Again, sideways, going in through the mouth and coming up here behind that little rib there on the tail. If you can see it, it's like a little flap. And just throwing it into the bed, working it like we would our other Texas rigs. If they're getting agitated at it, not eating it, throw this, follow up with the shaky head, follow up with a small jig, whatever it is. But I do think some tournaments and a lot of big fish this year are going to be caught off this gilly on beds. They don't like crawfish or bluegill being around their eggs. They're young. And so, if for fry garters too, after they're off the bed, I still think this gilly is just going to do some damage. The colors they have are very, very cool, I think. I have some other ones in like just a plain old green pumpkin, but I've certainly purchased a few to try, and I think we'd be remiss not to at least give it a mention. Like I said, I know I haven't fished with it. I normally don't like doing that, but I think it'd be foolish not to talk about it. So anyways, guys, that's where I would start. Can you catch other, fish off beds with different baits? Like, yes, of course, like grubs, hula sticks, there's lots of stuff, big swim baits, big Huddleston swim baits, top hook swim baits, you can catch them off beds with that. every fish is different. There's always going to be, some unique thing. You may be watching at home being like, well, Blake Bubblegum Fluke is the GOAT. Well, okay, then, like, that's fine. If they're eating a bubblegum fluke, throw that bubblegum fluke. But for me, guys, that's how I approach it. That's how I break it down. Generally, day in, day out, I find between the jig, the Texas rig, and then the downsizing approach for that to be, typically I have success with that. I've not really struggled with that. If you guys wanted, you're more into the swim bait style, you like that top hook stuff. I think that Mega Bass Dark Sleeper is probably a great bed bait. I've not used it. I throw the Dark Sleeper a ton, mostly using it as like a jig replacement. So I think that would be fine. If you guys wanted to try that, I think that would be another option for you. But there's tons of them out there, guys. Use what you have confidence in. And if you don't have confidence, start here, work through that. And guys, let me know down in the comments what your favorite bed bait is, if you have one. Thank y'all for watching. I appreciate it. If you haven't, like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate that so much. Keeps letting us do what we do. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next Friday. Peace.